Another day, another SEC lawsuit. If you guys didn't see, Binance just got sued by the SEC. Now, what does this mean? What should you do? And what are some of the kind of underlying things? Now, if you read some of the articles, investigate a little bit further into it, they're saying Binance was selling unregistered securities to U.S. customers. And, in the end, you just like, who cares? Okay, so they sold these digital tokens, these coins, or whatever, to U.S. customers. Big whoop-de-doo. It's stupid. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we're all on the same page. The SEC's not really there to help us. They're out there just kind of doing these little bully fundraisers. I'm all for kind of cracking down on scams and all that kind of stuff like that, but that's not really the case. For the most part, most people I ever talked to actually, liked Binance's service and didn't really have a ton of complaints for the most part. There might be a few exceptions about that, but all in all, even under the pressure of the whole FTX collapse and people withdrawing coins and stuff from Binance did not collapse. It didn't go insolvent. It kind of seems like that they actually had the funds, kind of thing. So all that being said, they did name some of these coins, some of these projects that the SEC was suddenly considering securities that had not been mentioned before. And this could mean kind of trouble if you're invested in these projects, but some of them were Cardano, Filecoin, Algorand, Cosmos, Polygon, and there were a few others, and they named maybe 7 or 8 of them. And this could be an issue, because then what's going to happen is they'll go and they'll file lawsuits against those projects or the creators of those projects, and then they're going to go after these exchanges that allowed people to trade those those different projects as well. I don't think I mentioned Solana. That's obviously another big one. Solana, Polygon, and Cardano and Cosmos, in my mind, were kind of big, kind of sort of standouts with that, the ones that they mentioned. Now, luckily, I don't have any kind of really kind of sizable positions in those currently. But I think that if you do, you have to kind of sit down and think about it, because look what happened to XRP. They didn't really get to participate in this last bull run. And the fact that the SEC had sued Ripple Labs really caused it to, basically stifle this last run. And the pricing is kind of somewhat similar to when they got the lawsuit filed against them. And XRP got delisted from a lot of the U.S. exchanges, at least temporarily for U.S. customers, during that lawsuit. And I think that a similar type thing will happen with these other projects. And it makes it harder for American-based institutional investors to invest in stuff like Solana, like Polygon, like Cardano, like Cosmos. Now, is it going to end those projects or anything? I would say no, not necessarily. Obviously, the cryptocurrency it's a global market that's 24/7, and it's global. So you're going to have other investment from other parts of the world and stuff like that, but that doesn't help that the inflows from the United States are kind of cut off, or there's some sort of issue. Now, what kind of stuff isn't considered a security? And that's a good question. And obviously it's all speculation, because they've never really had clarity, and that's one of the kind of bogus things about these lawsuits is they haven't really kind of provided proper clarity. And even in situations where projects cut off U.S. customers with basically an IP block to access the ICO, like EOS, for instance, did that. They had it, US customers were blocked. If you were to get around it, you had to go through with a VPN. But then the SEC was saying, oh, well, people got around it with a VPN, so you're still liable. And then they settled with them for, I think, 16 million on that. But then it's like, well, once they got past that, then it's like, okay, it's not considered a security. EOS is not considered a security, so they have like kind of free and clear. But then there was other issues with EOS and just kind of block one and all this other stuff. So, various other things are not a security. Like Telos, was a fork of EOS. That kind of thing would not be considered a security. They did not run any kind of crowdfunding, no kind of ICO. And then you have the stuff that was mined, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin. All that stuff wouldn't be considered securities. Monero wouldn't be considered a security. This is all my opinion, obviously, but I think it's widely kind of accepted that that's the case. Now, I'm surprised that they actually never went after Ethereum, because if you remember how Ethereum launched, they raised about $18 million worth of Bitcoin. And so they did crowdfunding. They didn't really block US customers. But it's almost like they've kind of given it a pass, or at least for the time being, they have not went after Vitalik or Ethereum in general. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of weird. These lawsuits are weird, guys. And that's the thing. It is a lawsuit. So they sued Binance and they sued CZ. They sued CZ, but again, it's a civil lawsuit. It's not the situation with the SEC. You're not typically going to be like end up in prison or something. That'd be something like Department of Justice or Interpol or something, going after someone they consider to be some sort of scammer who like stole funds or committed some sort of theft. So the SEC lawsuit is a civil lawsuit, and likely what will happen is, things will change with Binance US or other various things would be maybe kind of buttoned up. There'll probably be some kind of payment made from Binance to the SEC, which, it's just kind of extortion. They don't exist really kind of in the United States. And it's like you're trying to police this kind of like thing that is on the internet that people have access to. It's just very strange. All very, very strange. That being said, crypto's not, this isn't going to like take crypto down sort of like indefinitely, but it's sort of like a bump in the road, and kind of ends, in my opinion, it sort of ends this little relief rally a little bit early, because those are some major projects and it's all intertwined with these various different exchanges. And, and then, it's like, how many other people are they going to go after? How many other companies are they going to go after? And they just start throwing around these lawsuits. And, at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are these companies to do? And, Coinbase struck back a little bit, but it's almost like they need to almost kind of band together and file a lawsuit against the SEC. But then it's just like, well, then you're playing ball in their court kind of thing. And people have speculation that Ripple Labs is going to defeat the SEC. But again, it just takes years. It's just a headache. They spend all this money. It's not helping anybody. And, it kind of slows down actual innovation and, getting to the punch and actually creating something with this and kind of seeing how it evolves. In crypto, we're self-regulated. So Trayvon James and Craig Grant, they got sued by the SEC for promoting BitConnect, which they didn't create BitConnect. And, it's kind of one of those things that I spoke out against, because, I was like, look, this is a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme stacked on top of each other. And it's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to blow up in everybody's face. I had a lot of people kind of attacking me for that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're racist, blah, 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 this whole thing. Of course it blew up, and, but we're self-regulated. But do I think the SEC should have sued Craig Grant and Trayvon James? No. They didn't create the thing. It was up for the community, in my opinion, to kind of voice our concerns about the project and, kind of warn others, warn newbies. And, I went a step further. And to be honest with you, I don't know really what happened with that. Craig Grant is still MIA. At one point, he was kind of in Jamaica. He was kind of farming. Kind of had like a little garden set up. And then, Trayvon was like kind of almost like living out of a hotel for a while. And then it's almost like, well, Trayvon's kind of back and he's got his kind of studio set up and he's talking about various projects again and stuff like this. So I don't know the status because I don't follow his videos all the time. I just kind of like once in a while I'll kind of poke around or trip across something that they posted, and I don't know the whole situation. But that being said, I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a little bit of a hiccup, kind of especially for any sort of like this kind of continuance of this little relief rally kind of thing for this summer. And at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things that you've got to decide, do you want to stick with some of those investments if you were in some of those projects that the SEC mentioned, or do you want to dip out of them, at least for the time being, and maybe restack your bags after things kind of get sorted out and we kind of see the fallout from this. The whole market's going to get somewhat pulled down from this, I think, for the foreseeable future. And, at the end of the day, I was already predicting that we would have better buying opportunities in Q3 and Q4. People were out of money. The volumes were low. Now we have these SEC lawsuits. And Binance was the biggest exchange. So, and there's other exchanges that are connected to Binance in various different ways, shapes, or forms. And so this is not good for the crypto market, but by all means, it's not going to take it down. Oh, they were also acting like that BUSD and BNB is a security, which I thought that was kind of weird. And there's no more issuance of BUSD kind of thing, like no new BUSDs coming into existence. And I guess it was being issued by the same sort of trustee or something that does Paxos Standard, or like the Paxos dollar or whatever, from my understanding. So a lot of weird stuff happening. How is this going to affect the Binance Smart Chain in the future? It's yet to be seen, but at the end of the day, there were certain things that were done, like if you remember the Binance bridge, like Binance.org, and you could bridge onto the Binance Smart Chain, and it was like they just like they sort of like took that away, and they wanted to drive everybody through the Binance exchange or Binance US because they didn't want people VPN in and getting around that. Now other bridges were suddenly set up, the Seller Bridge or Multi-Chain or Rubik, or these various different bridges out there, get bridges in and out. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to say. I think this thing will continue, and I think the lawsuit will just go on for years, and it'll be this kind of rain cloud sort of hanging over some of these projects at the end of the day. But I think, it's obviously going to get past it and stuff like that. We're going to have another crypto bull market, and maybe it kind of puts some of the focus back on some of these other projects. Now, would Hex and Pulse Chain be a security? And that is a very good question. And I have my suspicions that the SEC's probably been breathing down Richard Hart's neck, to be honest with you, because he's been very careful with his wording. But the way that a lot of these projects originally got away from doing some sort of not being a security was they would have some kind of mining period. And this is what BitShares and this is what Steam did. So BitShares, originally there was a proof of work mining that was called ProtoShares, and then that turned into BitShares. And then Steam, they had a period of time where it was actually proof of work mineable, And there was like kind of this ninja launch where it was like they mined a bunch of coins, almost like Steam Incorporated mined a bunch of coins, and people weren't able to get in and kind of mine actively like others. So they ended up accumulating a bunch. But the reason they did all that was because they knew they couldn't do some sort of ICO, some sort of crowdfunding thing. They were trying to avoid the security laws. And it was almost like Dan Larimer was like able to sort of avoid it with those two projects. And then with EOS, they went ahead and did the ICO, but then they still got sued by the SEC. That being said, that's a little piece of history if you didn't know that part. With Pulse Chain and Hex, I think that, again, he says that the sacrifice addresses are an address with no expectation. And that's kind of the clever wording he tries to use. But at the end of the day, they could say, well, you're saying that, but everybody had an expectation that you're going to launch Pulse Chain. And this is why I was saying that, I felt that he would effectively come out with it unless he really got attacked by these, the SEC and stuff like that and stuff like that. So if he's being attacked and they're breathing down his neck, he still got it out. And then at this point, it's free running. It's out there. The community can obviously interact with the contracts, build on it, and they're running the nodes. And at the end of the day, the community can keep the Pulse chain running. And, Richard would be, essentially, I don't want to say out of the equation kind of thing, like obviously still be involved, but we have not seen his live streams. We have not seen all that other stuff. So exactly what's happening in the background, it's hard to say. And how many of these other projects are getting, talks with the SEC or they have not maybe filed suit. But we could just see a flurry of lawsuits kind of through the rest of this year. It's really hard to say. So anyway, guys, what do you think about this? Are you guys going to keep some of those projects? Polygon, Cosmos, Solana, Cardano, Filecoin, all those. Are you guys going to keep those? You're going to kind of dip out? Leave a comment below. Follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam, at Twitter, Hive. Subscribe.